We are looking at a beast today. I mean, really, a cultural institution. If you were an alien landing on Earth and you just, looked at the sheer volume of stats around this group, you wouldn't think musicians.
No, you'd think multinational corporation. Or a small country, maybe.
Exactly. We're talking over 163 million albums sold worldwide. We're talking about, and this is the one that always gets me, the third best-selling music artist of the entire SoundScan era.
Which is a massive distinction. I mean, you have to understand what that means. Since 1991, when they started actually scanning barcodes, only 2 artists have sold more albums.
Garth Brooks and the Beatles.
Right. So that puts them in some pretty rarefied air. It's not just about being a big metal band. It's about being one of the biggest recording acts of all time. Period.
And they are the first, and I believe still the only band to have played on all 7 continents.
Yep. They hauled their amps to Antarctica for a show called Freeze 'Em All, just to check that final box. It's that level of dedication, or maybe obsession.
But here's the thing that makes this specific deep dive so interesting to me. We aren't talking about a safe, radio-friendly pop act. We are not talking about, a Taylor Swift or a U2.
No. Not even close. We are talking about Metallica.
A band that built an entire empire on aggression, on songs about insanity and nightmares and drug addiction and war. They play fast, they look scary, or at least they used to, and yet somehow they became these mainstream superstars.
That's the central question, isn't it?
It is. The mission for this deep dive is to figure out how that happened. How did a tennis-playing drummer from Denmark and a painfully shy guitarist from a Christian Science family in Los Angeles, how did they survive tragedy, addiction, and the internet to become this massive titan of the Big Four?
It's a story of paradoxes. I think that's the only way you can really view it.
Yeah.
You have a band that's defined by speed, by thrash metal, that achieved its greatest commercial success by slowing down. You have a band that preaches this intense, almost cult-like brotherhood and loyalty to the fans, the Metallica family. Yet they have a history of some of the most bitter internal and external feuds in all of rock history.
And of course the big one. They're the band that tried to destroy the very technology that eventually, you could argue, saved the music industry.
Oh, the Napster war.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get deep into that lawsuit because it didn't just change the band's image, it changed the internet forever.
So we've got a massive stack of sources today. We've pulled the historical timelines, the discography deep dives, all the feud histories, and the critical reception records from the archives. But I think we have to start where all good stories start.
The awkward beginning.
The awkward beginning. Because before they were selling out stadiums and playing in Antarctica, there were just 2 lonely kids in Los Angeles who, frankly, couldn't find anyone to play with.
It's late 1981, and you really have to understand the context of Los Angeles at this specific moment. If you're a guitarist in LA in 81, what are you trying to look like? What are you trying to sound like?
Oh, it's Mötley Crüe, it's Rat, it's the birth of glam. You've got spandex, you've got hairspray, you've got makeup. The music is all about partying, girls, and, having a good time on the Sunset Strip.
Precisely. And then you have this Danish teenager, Lars Ulrich. He'd moved to Newport Beach from Copenhagen because his dad, Torben Ulrich, was a professional tennis player.
Right. The plan was for Lars to be a tennis pro, too.
That was the family business. But Lars had this secret obsession. He wasn't listening to Van Halen or the bands on the radio. He was completely consumed by something called the new wave of British heavy metal.
The NWOBHM. Yeah, bands like Diamond Head, Saxon, Iron Maiden, Tigers of Pantang. This was gritty, unpolished, working-class metal from the UK.
It was the absolute opposite of the Sunset Strip vibe.
Yeah.
Not even close.
So Lars is this total outsider. He's short, he's got the Danish accent, he's not the tennis star his dad wants him to be, and he wants to play this obscure British music that nobody in California has even heard of.
So he does what you did in 1981. He takes out a classified ad in a local newspaper. It's a paper called The Recycler.
I love the specificity of this ad. I mean, it didn't just say drummer looking for band. It was so targeted. It said drummer looking for other metal musicians to jam with Tigers of Pantang, Diamond Head, and Iron Maiden.
He was filtering out the glam rockers immediately. He was curating his circle before he even had one. He was essentially saying, if you don't know who these bands are, don't even bother calling me.
And that ad was answered by James Hetfield. Now, James was, in many ways, the opposite of Lars. He was this quiet, angry kid from a very strict Christian Science family down in Downey, California.
Oil and water. James was already a phenomenal rhythm guitarist, but socially, he He was introverted, maybe a little insecure. Lars was. Well, Lars was Lars. All hustle.
The first jam session was, by all accounts, terrible.
A disaster, yeah. Lars apparently couldn't really keep time. His cymbals kept falling over. James just thought he was this weird, spazzy European kid.
But here's the Lars Ulrich hustle that really defines the band's entire career. He might not have been the best drummer in the world at that point, but he was absolutely the best networker. He had befriended a guy named Brian Slagle, who was just starting a little indie label called Metal Blade Records.
Right.
So Lars goes to Slagle and asks him, hey, if I put a band together, can I get a song on your new compilation album, Metal Massacre?
And Slagle said yes.
Slagle said yes.
So Lars had the record deal, or at least the promise of a slot on a record, before he even had a functioning band.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's the ultimate leverage. He called Hetfield back and basically said, hey, remember me, the terrible drummer? Well, I'm going to be on a record. Do you want to play guitar on it?
In 1981, that's the golden ticket. A slot on vinyl, that's everything.
So they officially formed Metallica on October 28, 1981. That's about 5 months after they first met. But we have to talk about the name, Metallica. It sounds so established now, you know, like Coca-Cola or Ford, but they almost lost it to a fanzine.
This is another perfect example of Lars being, well, cutthroat. His friend, a guy named Ron Quintana, was starting a metal fanzine, and he had a list of potential names. He asks Lars for his opinion. The two top choices were Metal Mania and Metallica.
And Lars, you can just picture the gears turning in his head, realizes Metallica is the coolest name he's ever heard.
Oh, absolutely. So he immediately tells Ron, you know what, you should definitely call your magazine Metal Mania. That's a way better name.
Laughs just to get it out of the way so he could take the other one.
Exactly. He just swiped it. I'll take that. Thank you very much. Classic.
So they have the name, they have the drummer, and they have the rhythm guitarist and singer. But that early lineup was, let's say, volatile. We need to talk about the lead guitar spot. Because before there was Kirk Hammett, there was Dave Mustaine.
Dave Mustaine is such a pivotal, almost tragic figure in this story. He was the original lead guitarist, and by all accounts, a phenomenal player. They recruited him partly because he had really expensive equipment and he could get them good gigs.
But Mustaine was intense. That seems to be the word everyone uses.
To put it mildly, he was a brilliant player, very fast, very technical, very aggressive, but he had a serious problem with alcohol and violence. He was completely unpredictable.
The stories from that era are just wild. He'd get drunk and start fights with the crowd or with the other bands or with James and Lars. He famously poured an entire can of beer into the pickups of a rival band's bass guitar right before they went on stage.
He was a loose cannon. And it got to the point where Hetfield and Ulrich, who were no angels themselves, they started to feel unsafe around him.
So this all comes to a head in April 1983. The band has traveled all the way from California to New York to record their debut album.
Right. And one morning, they just wake Mustaine up while he's sleeping it off. They hand him a bus ticket back to Los Angeles and literally kick him out the door. His gear was already packed.
No warning. No, let's sit down and talk about this.
Nope. It was just, you're out. The bus leaves in an hour.
And that's a 4-day bus ride home.
Can you imagine? He had nothing to do for 4 days but sit on that bus and just stew in his anger and his resentment. And that anger is so important because Mustaine didn't quit music. He formed his own band, Megadeth, for the specific purpose of being faster, heavier, and more technical than Metallica.
So that one firing created the single greatest rivalry in thrash metal history. It gave us 2 of the big 4 bands right there.
And what's even crazier is that literally the same afternoon they fired Mustaine in New York, they were already on the phone with his replacement. They flew in Kirk Hammett from a Bay Area band called Exodus.
Kirk was the perfect counterbalance, wasn't he? He was calm. He was a little bit of a hippie. He was a student of Joe Satriani. He could shred, but he didn't have that same violent edge.
Not at all. He basically learned the entire set list on the flight over from San Francisco to New York.
But we are still missing the final and maybe most important piece of that classic lineup, the secret weapon, the bassist, Cliff Burton.
Cliff. Cliff was different. He was on another level entirely. Hetfield and Ulrich saw him playing a show at the Whiskey, a go-go in L.A., with his band at the time, a group called Trauma.
And they hear this sound, right? This insane, distorted solo.
Yeah, this crazy wah-wah distortion solo. And they look at the stage, expecting to see some amazing lead guitarist, but instead, they see this guy in bell-bottoms, just head-banging like a maniac with a Rickenbacker bass.
He was playing the solo on his bass, using a wah-wah pedal, which is That's technically bizarre, isn't it? The bass is supposed to be the anchor, the low end. The wah is for the crying, screaming lead guitar solos.
Exactly. Cliff played the bass like a lead instrument. He had classical training. He understood harmony and melody in a way that James and Lars, who were more about brute force, just didn't yet. They were completely blown away.
So they begged him to join the band.
They did. But Cliff was a Northern California guy through and through, a real Bay Area dude. He hated L.A. He hated the whole glam scene. So he told them, look, I'll join your band, but only on one condition.
You have to move.
You have to move your entire operation from L.A. up to the San Francisco Bay Area.
That is such a power move. Move your entire lives and the band's headquarters 400 miles north, or I'm not interested.
And they did it. They packed up their stuff and moved to a house in El Cerrito. And that geographical shift is so crucial to their story. Because in the Bay Area, they found their tribe. The Bay Area thrash scene was just starting to form.
This is where you get bands like Exodus, Testament, Death Angel.
Right. And it wasn't about hairspray and makeup. It was about denim jackets, leather, high-top sneakers, and just playing as fast and as aggressively as humanly possible. They were home.
So the lineup is finally locked. You have Hetfield on vocals and rhythm guitar, Ulrich on drums, Burton on bass, and Hammett on lead guitar. This is the classic lineup. And they drop what becomes known as the Thrash trilogy. Let's run through these because this is the foundation of the entire legend. First up, in 1983, Kill 'Em All.
Which they originally wanted to call Metal Up Your Ass.
Laughs right. With the proposed cover art of a hand holding a bloody dagger coming out of a toilet bowl.
Very subtle. The distributors, needless to say, refused to stock it.
Huh.
So Cliff Burton, in his infinite wisdom, apparently just said, you know what, man, just kill 'em all. Meaning kill the record company executives. And the name stuck.
And the album itself is just, it's pure, raw energy. It's basically punk rock played with heavy metal, precision, and speed. You've got songs like Whiplash and Seek and Destroy that are still live staples today. It really established the template for thrash.
Absolutely. And then just a year later, 1984, they released Ride the Lightning. This is where I think you really start to hear the Cliff Burton influence in a major way.
Oh, so?
Well, their songwriting becomes much more sophisticated. They start using acoustic guitars. They write a power ballad, the first of its kind, really called Fade to Black.
Which was incredibly controversial at the time. Metalheads in 1984 were like, what are you doing? Acoustic guitar is a slow song. You're selling out.
They got so much hate mail for it. But Fade to Black, which is about suicide, proved they could write emotionally heavy songs, not just physically heavy ones. It showed they were becoming real composers, not just bangers. It expanded the entire genre.
And then the big one, 1986, Master of Puppets.
The masterpiece. There's no other word for it. They recorded it in Denmark with producer Flemming Rasmussen. It is, without exaggeration, widely considered one of the greatest and most influential metal albums ever made.
It's perfect from start to finish.
It really is. The title track, Master of Puppets, is this 8.5-minute epic with multiple time changes, complex harmonies, an incredible instrumental section. And the themes are so mature. It's all about drugs controlling you, the government controlling you, insanity controlling you.
It was their first album to be certified gold. They were on a massive tour opening for Ozzy Osbourne. They were, for all intents and purposes, on top of the world.
They had finally arrived.
And that, of course, brings us to the tragedy. Because right at this absolute peak, everything changes. September 27, 1986.
It's the great what if that just haunts the entire genre. They were in Sweden on the European leg of the Damage Inc. tour. They were traveling overnight on a tour bus between Stockholm and Copenhagen.
And the conditions on the bus were not great.
No, they were terrible. The sleeping bunks were small and uncomfortable. So to make it fair, the band members would draw cards to see who got first pick of the bunks for the night.
It was literally a game of chance. A card game decided their fates.
It did. On that night, Cliff Burton drew the ace of spades. He looked over at Kirk Hammett and said, "I want your bunk." Kirk had one of those slightly better spots. Kirk said, "Fine, take it. I'll sleep up in the front of the bus." So Cliff took the bunk in the back.
And then sometime near dawn, the driver lost control of the bus.
The bus skidded off the road. It rolled over onto the grass. Everyone inside was just tumbled around like laundry in a dryer. James, Lars, and Kirk managed to climb out through the emergency hatch. They were bruised, in shock, standing in the freezing Swedish morning in their underwear. But they couldn't find Cliff.
The bus had landed on top of him.
He had been thrown through the window as the bus rolled, and then the full weight of the chassis came down and crushed him. He died instantly. He was only 24 years old.
The reaction of the band. I mean, you think of James Hetfield as this stoic, tough guy, the I am the table guy. But the reports from the scene are just heartbreaking.
He was completely distraught. He was running up and down the road in his socks, screaming for the driver, threatening to kill him. He was convinced the driver was drunk or had fallen asleep. The driver claimed he hit a patch of black ice.
And James didn't believe him.
No.
Right.
James apparently walked for miles down that road in the freezing cold looking for the ice, and he found nothing. It was just a senseless, tragic accident.
Losing a band member is hard enough, but losing Cliff, he wasn't just the bassist. He was the musical soul of the band. He was the one who taught them about music theory and harmony. I mean, how do you even begin to replace that?
You can't. And I think they knew that. They seriously debated breaking up. But Cliff's family, his parents, they told the band, Cliff would want you to carry on. You have to.
So they did. But I think they processed their grief in a really unhealthy way. They didn't go to therapy. They just got angry. And they took all of that anger and grief and directed it at the new guy.
Jason Newsted.
Poor Jason Newsted.
Yeah, poor Jason. He was a huge Metallica fan. He played in a thrash band called Flotsam and Jetsam. He absolutely nailed the audition. He knew all the songs. But from the very moment he joined, he was the designated punching bag.
The hazing stories are just legendary and honestly pretty cruel.
It was relentless psychological warfare. They would run up huge bar tabs on his hotel room service without telling him. They would tell interviewers he was gay. They famously tricked him into eating a giant ball of wasabi by telling him it was guacamole.
And musically, they shut him out.
Completely. They never let him have a real say in the music. For 13 years, he was the new kid. And that hostility actually and audibly impacted the sound of their very next album, 1988's And Justice for All. This is the album famous for the missing bass.
Right. Audio engineers and fans still debate this to this day. If you listen to Justice, the production is incredibly strange. It sounds dry, it's clinical, it's thin. There is almost zero low end. The drums sound like typewriters, just this click, click, click sound.
And Jason's bass lines, which were apparently very complex and well-written, are virtually inaudible in the final mix.
So was that deliberate? Was it part of the hazing?
The consensus is yes. The story goes that Lars and James went into the mixing room with the engineers and basically said, turn the bass faders down until you can barely hear them. And when the engineer did that, they said, okay, now turn them down another 5 decibels.
Wow. So they were sonically erasing him from the record.
It was a sonic manifestation of their grief and their anger. They were hazing him on the actual vinyl.
Which is a real shame because the songs on that album are incredible. They're so complex and progressive. You've got Blackened, Harvester of Sorrow, and of course the big one, One.
One changed everything for them.
Yeah.
Up to this point, Metallica had stubbornly refused to make music videos. They thought MTV was for posers. They thought it was selling out.
But for One, they finally caved. They bought the rights to a 1971 anti-war film called Johnny Got His Gun.
Which is a terrifying movie. If you've never seen it, it's about a soldier in World War I who gets hit by an artillery shell and loses his arms, his legs, his eyes, his ears, and his mouth. But his mind is still perfectly awake. He's just a prisoner in his own body.
Chilling.
So they intercut scenes from that movie with shots of the band playing in this stark, empty warehouse. It was dark, it was gritty, and it was deeply disturbing. And MTV put it on heavy rotation.
It broke them out of the metal underground and put them into living rooms all across America.
It did, and it led to the infamous 1989 Grammy Awards. This was the first time the Grammys ever had a category for hard rock metal performance. Metallica was nominated for those, and Justice for All, they were the heavy favorites.
They were the only logical choice. I mean, they performed One on the broadcast that night. Everyone, including the other nominees, just assumed Metallica would win.
And then Alice Cooper opens the envelope, and he announces the winner is Jethro Tull.
Laps for the album Crest of a Knave. Jethro Tull, the band with the flute.
The flute-heavy folk rock band Jethro Tull won the first ever award for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance. The audience just gasped. It was so embarrassing for the Grammys. It just proved how completely out of touch the Academy was with modern music.
Metallica took it in stride, though. They put a sticker on the next pressing of the album that said Grammy Award losers.
They did. But I think that loss and that chip on their shoulder, it pushed them toward the biggest, most important pivot in their entire career. It pushed them towards the 1990s and towards the Black Album.
This is where the story shifts from big metal band success to global domination.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after the Tour for Justice, they decide they're sick of the complex 10-minute songs and the dry production.
Yeah.
They wanted something that sounded huge. So they hired a producer named Bob Rock.
And Bob Rock was known for working with bands like Mötley Crüe and Bon Jovi.
The sworn enemies. the bands Metallica had spent their entire career railing against.
So why hire the enemy?
Because those albums sounded enormous. They sounded expensive. They had this punch and this low end that Metallica's albums, for all their complexity, just didn't have. They wanted that sonic weight.
But Bob Rock had a condition for working with them.
He did. He basically told them, look, I don't want to just engineer your songs. I want to produce them.
Meaning he wanted to be involved in the arrangements, in the songwriting.
He wanted to simplify everything. He listened to their demos and he told them, you guys play too fast. You have way too many riffs in one song. I want you to slow down. I want you to find a groove. Think of a song like Sad But True. That's the Bob Rock influence right there.
And I imagine James and Lars, who are notorious control freaks, just loved hearing that.
Oh, they hated it. The recording of what became the Black Album was a complete war. It took 9 months to make. It cost over $1 million, which was a fortune back then. 3 of the 4 band members got divorced during the recording process.
3 of them, wow.
Yeah, including Lars and Kirk. They argued with Bob Rock over every single drum hit, every vocal inflection. Bob challenged Hetfield to actually sing, not just bark and yell. That's how we got songs like The Unforgiven and The Big One, Nothing Else Matters.
But when that album finally dropped in August of 1991, Bob Rock was proven right.
He was 100% right. It debuted at #1 in 10 different countries. It went on to sell 16 million copies in the United States alone. It's one of the best-selling albums of all time.
And Enter Sandman became like the national anthem of stadium rock music.
It did. And this is where that SoundScan data becomes so important.
Right, explain SoundScan for anyone who might not know.
Before 1991, the Billboard charts were based on a pretty archaic system. They would basically just call up record store clerks around the country and ask, hey, what's selling well this week? It was easily manipulated. SoundScan introduced barcode scanning at the point of purchase. It counted every single actual sale.
And when SoundScan turned on, the music industry was shocked.
They were floored. They realized that country music, hip-hop, and heavy metal were selling way, way more than they thought. Metallica wasn't just big for a metal band. They were one of the biggest bands in the country, period. The numbers finally proved it.
But with that level of fame comes that sort of Spinal Tap level of disaster. The tours were just massive. They had the snake pit stage in the middle of the arena, and they had the pyro. We have to talk about Montreal, 1992.
The infamous Guns N' Roses Metallica Stadium Tour. It was the biggest ticket on the planet that summer, just 2 juggernauts. But in Montreal, during the song Fade to Black, there was a pyrotechnic miscommunication.
The pyro guy got the cue wrong.
Yeah. James Hetfield stepped onto a spot on the stage where a 12-foot pillar of magnesium flame was scheduled to erupt a few seconds later. But it went off early.
And it just engulfed him.
It did. It completely engulfed him. It melted his guitar. He suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns all down his entire left side. Jason Newsted described seeing James's skin literally bubbling. It was horrific.
And yet, they finished the tour.
James was back on stage just 17 days later. He was all bandaged up. He couldn't play guitar, but he was up there singing while his guitar tech played his parts from the side of the stage. It just cemented his reputation as this indestructible, iron-willed frontman. But you have to imagine underneath all that, the cracks were starting to form.
Let's jump forward a few years. The mid-90s. The alternative rock era. Grunge has come and killed off the hair metal scene, but Metallica decides to change again. This is the load and reload era.
This is what a lot of people call the identity crisis era. And the first thing they did, they cut their hair.
It sounds so silly now, but in 1996, for a metal band, that was a huge deal.
It was a massive betrayal to the purists. Seeing Metallica with short hair, wearing eyeliner and, designer shirts, it was like the world was ending for some fans.
And the music changed, too. It was much more bluesy. You have songs like Until It Sleeps and Hero of the Day.
Right.
It definitely wasn't thrash metal.
No, it was alternative hard rock.
Yeah.
It was them trying to fit into the Lollapalooza generation. And the art. Let's not forget the album art. The cover of Load is a piece by the artist Andre Serrano called Blood and Semen III.
And it is literally what the title says it is.
It is literally a photograph of a mixture of bovine blood and the artist's own semen pressed between 2 sheets of plexiglass.
I just wonder how many millions of kids bought that album at Walmart having absolutely no idea what they were looking at.
A lot of them. But while the fans were all arguing about haircuts and controversial art, a much, much bigger storm was brewing on the horizon. A storm called Napster.
This is the part of the story that, they make business school case studies about this. The year is 2000.
Okay, here's the setup. Metallica records a new song called I Disappear for the Mission. Impossible 2 movie soundtrack. The song hasn't been released yet. But one day, they hear it playing on the radio.
And they're completely confused. They're thinking, wait a minute, we have the master tape. The studio has a copy. How is this on the radio already?
So their team does some digging, and they trace the leak back to this new file-sharing service called Napster. It was a peer-to-peer network. People were uploading their MP3s from their own computers and letting other people all over the world download them for free.
And they didn't just find I Disappear on there.
No, they found their entire back catalog, every album, every song, available for instant, free download.
Now, let's be clear. Legally, Metallica was 100% in the right. This was copyright infringement. It was theft on a massive scale.
Legally, yes, but optically.
Yeah.
From a public relations standpoint, it was an absolute disaster.
Lars Ulrich became the face of the lawsuit. And he didn't just sue Napster as a company. He went after the fans.
He did. He had a team track down the IP addresses of over 300,000 users who had downloaded Metallica songs. And he physically delivered a printout of that list of names to Napster's office, demanding that they all be banned from the service.
That image of Lars, the millionaire rock star, handing over a box full of names of, like, teenagers in their dorm rooms to get them kicked off the internet, it was PR suicide.
It completely destroyed their man of the people, us against the world image that they had cultivated for so long. There was that famous skit at the MTV Video Music Awards where Marlon Wayans is playing a college kid listening to Metallica on his computer.
And Lars storms into his dorm room.
Yeah, and starts stealing all his stuff. He grabs his beer and says, "That's mine." He takes his posters off the wall. Borrowing is sharing.
Lars was booed on stage at that award show. For years after that, they were branded as the greedy band.
Which is ironic, because in hindsight, they were the canary in the coal mine. They were the first ones to really sound the alarm that digital streaming, if left unchecked, would completely devalue music. But at the time, they just looked like rich rock stars bullying college kids.
And while they were fighting this war with the internet, they were completely falling apart internally. This leads us to the Saint Anger era. This is the absolute bottom.
2001 to 2003 is just one disaster after another. First, Jason Newsted finally snaps. After 14 years of being the new guy, he had started a side project called Echo Brain, and James Hetfield completely vetoed it.
He told him he wasn't allowed to do it.
He told him, "You can't do that. When you're in Metallica, you're married to Metallica. A side project is like cheating on your wife."
Which is just incredibly controlling.
It was. It was the final straw for Jason. So he quit. He just walked away. And that shock, combined with all the other pressures, it sent James into a complete spiral. In July of 2001, James entered rehab for alcoholism and other undisclosed addictions. He was gone for months. The band effectively ceased to exist. They didn't know if he was ever coming back.
And the craziest part of all of this is that they had hired a film crew to document the making of their next album, and they ended up documenting the near-total collapse of the band instead.
The documentary, some kind of monster. If you haven't seen this film, you have to watch it. It's one of the most painfully honest rock documentaries ever made. It shows them hiring a performance enhancement coach, basically a therapist named Phil Towell, at a cost of $40,000 a month to help them just talk to each other.
It's excruciating to watch. You see these metal gods sitting in a room talking about their feelings, using therapy speak. It's surreal.
And the album that came out of all this turmoil and all this therapy was Saint Anger.
Probably the most hated and ridiculed album in their entire discography.
It is raw. It is messy. Sonically, it's just abrasive. They made a rule that there would be no guitar solos. Kirk Hammett wasn't allowed to play any solos because they decided it wasn't honest enough for the raw emotion of the album.
And the drums. We have to talk about the trash can snare drum.
Oh, the snare drum. Lars decided to turn the snares off on his drum, so instead of a crack, it just rang out with this high-pitched king ank on every beat. It literally sounds like he's hitting a metal trash can lid or an oil drum.
Fans absolutely hated it. Critics were just confused.
But, you know, looking back, it's a perfect sonic representation of where the band was at. It sounds like a band having a nervous breakdown on tape. It's ugly because the situation was ugly.
But they survived it. James got out of rehab. They hired a new bassist, Robert Trujillo, from Suicidal Tendencies, who is an absolute beast of a player.
And they paid him a $1 million advance just to join the band, which tells you something about the scale of Metallica Inc., even at their lowest point.
So how do you redeem yourself after Saint Anger? How do you win the fans back? You go back to basics. 2008, the album Death Magnetic.
They fired Bob Rock, and they hired Rick Rubin. And Rick Rubin is like the anti-Bob Rock. He doesn't hold your hand. His production style is very hands-off. He basically told them, I want you to go back and listen to Master of Puppets and remember who you were. Pretend it's 1985 again.
So he forced them to go back to their roots.
Completely. He made them return to standard tuning, write long, complex songs, and most importantly, he told them to let Kirk Hammett shred again. The guitar solos were back.
And it worked. The album was seen as a massive return to form.
It was. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, which made them the first band ever to have 5 consecutive studio albums debut at the top spot. It proved they could still be Metallica.
And this era also brought about a lot of healing, didn't it? Specifically, the Big Four tour in 2010.
This was huge. For the first time ever, Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax, the 4 pillars of American thrash metal, shared the stage together.
And the visual of James Hetfield hugging Dave Mustaine on stage.
It was closure. It was the end of a nearly 30-year feud. It was a really powerful moment for the entire metal community.
But because it's Metallica, they couldn't just stay safe and play the hits. In 2011, they did. Lulu.
Oh, God. The infamous collaboration with Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground. It's an art rock concept album based on a set of German expressionist plays from the early 20th century.
It's basically Lou Reed doing spoken word poetry over these sludgy, repetitive Metallica riffs.
It is virtually unlistenable to most fans. It's one of the most critically reviled albums ever released by a major artist. Lou Reed actually challenged Lars Ulrich to a street fight during the recording sessions, but you have to give them credit.
For what?
It showed that even in their 50s, even as billionaires, they were still willing to take massive, insane, career-damaging risks. They followed their artistic muse, even when it led them off a cliff.
Let's talk about the business side again for a second, because in 2012, they did something incredibly smart. They launched their own record label, Blackened Recordings.
This is the key to their modern wealth and power. After their contract with their longtime label was up, they negotiated the rights to all of their master recordings back. They own everything.
So every stream, every vinyl reissue, every time a song is used in a movie or a video game.
That money goes straight to them. They cut out the middleman. They're a fully independent, self-contained corporation.
And they are using that independence to stay incredibly relevant. They aren't just a nostalgia act playing their old hits.
Not at all. Look at what happened with the show Stranger Things. In 2022, they used Master of Puppets in a key scene.
Right, the Eddie Munson scene in the Upside Down.
Exactly. And the song, which was 36 years old at that point, just exploded. It shot up the charts all over the world. A whole new generation of kids discovered it. And instead of being old and gatekeeping about it, Metallica embraced the new fans. They posted videos on TikTok, duetting with the scene.
And then just this year, in 2024, they did a massive integration into the video game Fortnite.
A fuel, fire, fury, in-game concert event. They understand that to survive in the 21st century, you have to capture the 14-year-olds, not just the 50-year-olds who grew up with them. They're constantly looking forward.
I want to zoom out for a second and look at the so what here. We've tracked them from the garage in LA to the corporate boardroom, from the Alcoholica days of destroying hotel rooms to the All Within My Hands Foundation.
Which is their charity, and it does some amazing work. It donates millions of dollars to community colleges for workforce education, to food banks, to disaster relief efforts like Maui wildfires or supporting Ukraine.
They've really matured. But the music, even on their latest album, 72 Seasons, is still incredibly heavy.
It is, and I think a lot of that comes down to one specific technical thing. We've talked about them being fast, but we haven't really talked about the Hetfield right hand.
The down picking.
That is the engine of the entire band. James Hetfield almost exclusively uses down picking on his right hand. Most guitarists use an alternating up-down motion to play fast passages. James just goes down, 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 down.
Which is physically exhausting.
It's like a jackhammer. It requires incredible stamina and precision, but it creates this percussive, machine gun-like attack that is just tighter and more aggressive than anything else. That physical discipline is the absolute core of their sound.
And that discipline, that refusal to quit, has allowed them to outlast everyone and everything. Think about it. They outlived the cassette tape. They outlived the CD. They outlived the MP3. They literally outlived Napster, the very service they tried to destroy. They are currently outliving the concept of an album itself.
They are the cockroach of rock and roll. You just cannot kill them.
And they are still filling stadiums. Their current M72 World Tour is this massive production where they sell out 2 nights in every single city with a completely different set list each night.
It's remarkable for a band that's been doing this for over 40 years.
So here's my final provocative thought for you to chew on. In a genre like heavy metal, which is so often obsessed with youth and aggression and rebellion, Metallica has somehow become the classic rock of our generation. They are to us what the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin were to our parents.
That's a very fair comparison. They are the institutions now, the elder statesmen.
But it raises a really interesting question. Metallica is still, by a huge margin, the biggest metal band in the world. They have been for over 30 years. Who's next? Is there anyone even on the horizon? Or did Metallica climb the ladder to the top of the mountain and then just pull it up behind them?
That is the worrying part, I think. There are great modern heavy bands. You've got Slipknot, Gojira's, Ghosts, but none of them are Metallica big. None of them are sell 16 million albums in the US big. None of them are play Antarctica big.
The industry has just fragmented too much.
It has. The monoculture that allowed a band like Metallica to get that huge just doesn't exist anymore. We may never see a rock band, or really a band of any genre, achieve that level of global saturation ever again.
So Metallica might just be the last of the Titans. A lightning strike that happened because a Danish tennis player put a weird ad in a newspaper, and a shy kid from Downey decided to answer it.
And thank God he did.
Absolutely. Thanks for unpacking this absolute monster of a topic with us. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.